I'm so excited that you are joining us for today's chat with a really good friend and also, I would say, a coach who has supported me and putting me on a brand new path to bring in some more fun and creativity into my life and also to sort of hone some dormant gifts and talents that I had and one particular point in my life and now being able to transfer those to some new incredible ventures. And so we'll get into that. And the beautiful face you're seeing on the screen is Marisa Bramwell.
Hi, Clay.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm honored you called me a coach. I've never thought of myself as a coach, but...
And you are, and folks, we're going to get into why I said that. But right before we do that, I just want to say thank you so much for last week's conversation with Abraxas Higgins. Your feedback has been really, really incredible, especially our folks over in Europe, definitely the UK, India, Norway, and just really around the world. Abraxas has a really cool following of people, and your response about being able to hear his story for the first time as to how he went from the financial sector in New York City to now being a thought leader and really creating some cool impact around culture and just in day-to-day conversations in that Clubhouse platform. So again, please, if you didn't hear that conversation, go back and listen to that podcast and check out Abraxas on Clubhouse. He and I are actually going to have a conversation on June 3rd on Clubhouse, but more about that later. So I know, right?
I'm so excited. Here we go.
Here we go.
Yeah.
And so listen, folks, you are probably looking on the screen and you're hearing, if you're listening to the audio portion of this podcast, a voice that you actually probably recognize. Marisa was on the show before. I can't remember what season, but the title was Something Better is Coming. I remember that, right?
Yes.
And so this time, people, I am welcoming Marisa to this conversation. And can you share your new titles that you have, Marisa, and what you are working on and the reason why I have brought you on today?
Oh man, the titles. I'm trying to be less attached to titles, which has been really hard for me. But I am the executive producer and writer and director of a scripted podcast called Venice that I am producing, and it's coming out June 1st, 2021.
And which is crazy. It's like next week, a couple of days, right?
It's a few days away.
The reason why I wanted to invite Marisa on to this podcast is because not only did she support me as a friend, and I said coach earlier, and here's why. We were talking some time ago, and she was just saying, have you ever thought about doing voiceover artist acting work? And she goes, I think you have a really great voice, and you seem to be able to understand, character development, things like that. And she invited me to take part at for an audition for this scripted podcast. And so, Marisa, I just want to say thank you for not only supporting me and having fun, which was your whole reason, like, Clay, you need to have a little bit more fun, but also helping coach me towards something brand new. And before we get into the tenets of the podcast, what was your thought process around just me needing to have a little bit more creativity? Because I think it's having folks in our lives who can tell us the truth, point a mirror to us, is the best way for us to grow as individuals. So that'll be great, I think, if other people hear why you felt that and why you offer this platform.
Sure. I think I remember that conversation. I was in Santa Barbara sitting on a tree. And I think we were both at the time so drained. 2020 was an incredibly stressful year. I know that you are incredibly driven and focused, and you're a great executive coach, and you have your podcast where you interview amazing people who are inspirational and have such a wealth of knowledge. But I think I knew I was in a work mode. And I think at the time you were too. And you do have a great voice. And I was thinking of who I would cast in this show and I thought of you. But then I also thought, well, you probably need to consider maybe doing voiceover acting or as another talent or another career, I guess, occupation,
Mhm.
because you have such a great voice and because you are regularly on interviewing
Mhm.
people, and you know how to, you have that skill set just naturally. So that's why I
Mhm.
thought that you'd be great at
Yeah.
it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And again, I appreciate you and I thank you for that. And now, sort of shifting gears, at what point did you realize and say to yourself, I want to create this scripted podcast? And then we'll get into what the show is actually about. But like, where did that come from? What was it birthed out of?
I started writing. This idea had been floating around in my head for a few years. I wanted to. I
Mm.
live in Santa Monica, and when I first moved to LA a few years ago, I found myself in this like spiritual community of LA,
Mm.
and I was really trying to get, I guess, get in with them or be friends, make friends in this community, because I do consider myself a spiritual person.
Mhm.
But I noticed that there were some very, you know, I just noticed that there were some unusual characteristics that I didn't quite vibe with. Um, I do have friends that I've made in that community who are amazing, but then there's a whole other subset that
Mhm.
I thought was really fascinating and almost like
Mhm.
cultish, and that's when I was like, there's got to be
Mm.
something here that I've got to write about, because there's just too many crazy things happening and too many unusual stories. And
Yeah.
so I initially started writing it last year in 20 during the pandemic as a murder mystery, but I'm not really into true crime or murder or anything like that. Uh,
Uh-huh.
so then, so then it evolved into maybe just like a dark drama. And I was writing it I'm in a couple writing groups, and something about it as a 60-minute just wasn't quite working for me. And I don't know if it
Mhm.
was because of the stress of the pandemic and just feeling stifled creatively. But I saw that scripted podcasts were picking up, and I have experience in producing podcasts. And
Mhm.
I thought that I needed a way to showcase my work. Being a writer, it's great to have a stack of scripts, but if nobody can see your work, then it's like you don't exist.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so I think it's super important for anybody who does want to be a writer to get their work out there. And I thought
Mhm.
this would be a great way to do that. Uh, and it
Mhm.
would be a great way for me to exercise my producing skills and get more experience with that just on a different platform of podcasting.
Yeah, and it's so interesting too about, the whole getting away from titles. I think it's really important for people to hear the nuances of what it was that went into this work, because the rest of us, as like the cast and the team, we were all, after each of our rehearsals and the production, round of applause and clapping for you and for Joel. We'll talk about his work a little bit later in the show, because you, what appeared to be very seamlessly, assumed all those positions and you did it very well. Was it hard for you at any point to, as this was your first scripted podcast that you wrote for yourself, was it hard for you to step in and fully embody what those roles needed to be in order to lead us?
Yes. Especially after when we did the table read, and then I needed to rewrite everything. Not everything, but
Mm.
I had to do some rewrites, and under a pretty, a deadline, I think I had to do them in a day,
Yeah.
which
It was a quick turnaround.
yeah, quick turnaround. And I was at the time at my family's house in Texas.
That's right.
And we were traveling, and I was also working
Mhm.
a, a job. So it was a lot. And I, I had the moment of, I had one of those crisis moments where I thought, is this what I really want to do? But then we got to the tape day and we did it, and it was a lot of, and even that was stressful because we taped on that day. We did it on Zen Zencaster, um, which was not a great fit for a scripted podcast with 10 cast members and
Mhm.
9 cast and a sound engineer, and then me directing.
Mhm.
It wasn't just a few technical issues that we had that was very stressful, combined with
Mhm.
weather that people were having around the country because the cast was spread out in 3 different
Right.
time zones. So recording 3 episodes with 11 people across 3 different time zones was a lot, and I like to work efficiently, so I said we're going to record all these in 2 hours. Of course that did not happen. um, and so I was stressed about that because I want to be mindful of people's time.
Mhm.
And so yes, it was very difficult, but I'm glad that I did it. I'm
Mhm.
grateful for the experience, and I hope everyone enjoyed their time working with me.
Yeah. And even though we were in the midst of a pandemic and it caused all of us to have different modalities for how we communicate, how we are creative, and how we're actually going to get that work out there, did
Mhm.
anything about this process? Was it supportive of you more so than it would have been if we were all in person? Anything that stood out for you that actually was a benefit?
Yes, I got to work with whoever I wanted to. I got to work with you. You're not
Mm.
in LA, so if a requirement was that the cast had to be in LA and I was recording at a podcasting studio, then I wouldn't have gotten to work with you. I wouldn't have been able to work with Christiane Klein, who's incredible as Chloe,
Amazing.
one of the cult leaders, and Gabby, who's also amazing as the
Yes.
ingenue. Uh, she's also in New York. Gabby Gold. Um, Pavar, also in New York. Pavar Snipe, it's an amazing comedian. So yes, I am grateful for the technology because it allows me to work with all of my friends who are around the country at the same time doing pretty amazing things. So
Y- Yeah, and I love that, Marissa, because so many people have, as we've been navigating the isolation, navigating, illnesses and death, and so many things that, happen in COVID for each of us or association through someone. Some really interesting technological and just connective things have come out of it. And just kind of reminds me of the whole Spanish flu and Shakespeare creating, 3 different incredible sagas and plays that really change and shape culture right after that. And so let's
that's
get into
pressure.
right. Okay, wait, no. So let's get into Venice. What
Yes.
is the actual story about? And I know you shared tenets of what you were inspired by, but break down to our audience what the show is and why you decided to take it in the direction you did.
So Venice is a story about about a woman whose younger sister moves to LA and gets sucked into this spiritual community. But it's not the community as a whole. It's a very specific, like a subset uh, that is based at a house called Oasis.
Mm.
And that's loosely based off of a couple different houses in Venice where people rent out these mansions and have retreats, spiritual retreats, or a bunch of people living there, people who are psychics or uh, do yoga or teach yoga or channelers. just a
Hmm.
community of people, and they go and they hang out at night and during the day, and they, you know, it's basically like a mini community in a mansion. So that's what it's based off of, or inspired
Okay.
by, not
And as you were,
totally based off of, because I've been to a few of these different houses in LA.
yeah. And so as you are writing this out, what was your process in terms of creating the storyline and then being able to just flesh it out? Tell our audience what that was like for you.
I wanted to tell a sibling story. I don't have a sister, but I have a younger brother, and I have a best friend who is somewhat like a sister to me. And so I wanted to tell the story of siblings and just how you can love each other and want the best for each other, but sometimes you still, uh,
Mhm.
have butt heads. You still butt heads. You have your conflicts. You don't always get along, but sometimes you do, and it's great. And sometimes you don't.
Mm.
And so I wanted to tell a sibling story. I also wanted to tell the story of somebody on one side who thinks spirituality and everything involved with that is nonsense. And then I wanted to tell the other extreme of somebody who believes everything just full on naively.
Mhm.
And with the idea that there's an in between, like they're both right but they're also both wrong, like
Mhm.
there's a middle ground there. At least in my opinion, I think they're both right, but they're also both wrong. Like there are some extremes to everything, and just trying to find the middle ground of spirituality is, I think, important to find, to be grounded in just anything and maintain balance. So
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. We're vibing through. And so when you were writing this, I'm curious to know, because I know a lot of writers who say that this is what I want the audience to take away, and some who say this is, I want it to be a free flowing, whatever that experience is. Did you have sort of something that you wanted for yourself to take away, or did you want something more so for the audience to take away after you finish the piece?
I wrote it mostly for myself, I think, to get a few things off my chest. Um,
Mm.
just a few things. It's funny because I submitted the script to Austin Film Festival last year for their podcast, and it didn't do anything, because I think one of the reader comments was, "I'm not sure if this is a comedy or a drama. It just doesn't seem real." And the thing is that
Mm.
pretty much like 80% of the things that I wrote happened to me. Or
Oh,
actually were real. So I thought it was funny that they thought it was a comedy or just too out, outrageous to actually be real. And it is real. A lot of the things are real, that I wrote about, and they seem insane because they are. Um,
right.
and I think I just needed an outlet to express, to express that, to express the fact that I thought that it was. And I think the other dimension that I didn't mention, and it's not mentioned in this podcast, is that my two leads, the sisters, are women of color in this community that is predominantly white in
Mm.
LA. Um,
Mhm.
and the appropriation or misappropriation of spirituality from different cultures, misappropriation, yes.
That word.
Um,
Yeah.
and how people are treated, and it's not, I don't call it out, but it's there,
Mhm.
um as an undertone, and that's also like a big issue that I have with the community.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. And what surprised you at all, if anything did, at the end and we were wrapping up? Anything surprised you about just the story in general, or any of the characters? Like what was the
um
takeaway for you after?
I think it was interesting how the actors, how everybody just brought the characters to life and brought their own personalities into the characters. That
Mm-hmm.
was very cool. I liked that a lot. I think that what surprised me was I had one idea of how I wanted the story to go. And now that I'm in post production and it's about to come out, I have, and this could just be the self critical writer in me. I have
Uh-huh.
ideas. I'm like, oh, I would do this differently next time. But the good thing is that I have a next time, and I'm trying to calm that internal voice, that critical voice that's like, you know, well, your story should have this or that or the other. Again, I think it's important just to get the work out there. I like it. I love the music that Joel Edinburgh, he's the music supervisor and
Incredible.
composer. So good. He was fantastic directing the actors too. And working with you all to make sure your equipment was on point and that you sounded good as possible with this remote recording. So I think there are just like a lot of little surprises um, throughout
Yeah.
the
And
end.
what was your greatest gift that you received from this experience?
Honestly, it was just the experience of working with everybody when we did the record dates. It was so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
It was it was fun hearing everybody have fun and just have express their creativity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that was my favorite thing, was just working with all my friends,
Yeah, I love that. And
no
it was
matter how
so,
this turns out.
yeah, exactly. And I love that you led with intention as like our director. You were very clear about that. Like, let's have fun and let's rock out. For a lot of people who are trying to figure out whether to launch that thing, I have so many associates and colleagues and a couple of friends who are in this space. Actually, a lot of people, now that I think about it, they're in this space of they're hiding their projects. They don't want it to get out into the world because of the criticism piece and, things like that. At what point did you decide that I am going to have this now be I'm going to launch it on this date. This is what I'm going to, need in terms of cast. Like, what was that process like for you? And what would you say to people in terms of knowing when they can just go ahead and just take the risk of putting themselves out there?
I just say, you just have to do it. And I understand because it's taking me, I put out a short, wow, maybe 10 years ago, 7 years ago, a short on YouTube. I
Mm,
did a couple shorts and I would do them sporadically. It's nerve wracking to put your work out there. It's very intimidating. I'm not going to
mm,
lie. Even this whole, I've been stressed out all week. I'm very anxious about people hearing this
mm-hmm,
and criticizing it like I'm criticizing myself before. It's just, and I just think that's just not something that's ever going to go away, because
mm-hmm,
it's just not going to go away. Um, so
mm-hmm.
it's something that you just need to learn how to deal with, but it's 100% something you should do, is to put your work out there. I know a lot of writers are concerned, well, if I put my work out there, then someone's going to steal my idea.
Mm,
Ideas aren't, you can't copyright them, unfortunately, but you should just always have better ideas. Just I have a running list of 50 ideas. Someone takes Venice. Okay. I have other ideas that I love and I'll
mm.
do. And if someone takes, eventually, I mean, what are you going to do? You can't control that.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't hold you back from, that shouldn't prevent you from letting the world know that you are talented and that you are creative and that you have a voice to share with the world.
Mm. That you have a voice to share with the world. And I love that. It seems to be like there's a level of attachment to these projects and to these things. And that way, it just seems like you stand in this space of creating genius or something that really is an amazing thing when you don't have the sense of attachment, to those things. And
Yes.
in terms of characters that you selected throughout this whole entire podcast, I bet a lot of people are really wondering, how is it that you knew that this person was right for that character? And when you run, go ahead.
Oh, what, like as far as casting the actors?
Yeah, how did that happen for you? How does one go about that?
So I thought of I reached out to a few friends, you, Gabby,
Mm,
and collected the list of friends who were interested in participating. And I have friends who were wanted to participate who I and I love them. And I was like, I don't think that they're quite right for this role. And it's nothing
mm, of
against them as an actor. They're fantastic, but
course.
I want to write another project to put them in
Mm,
so that we can get to play and have fun together creatively. I I thought of all the friends that I have. I heard their voices in my head, and I thought, and then I just kind of cast it accordingly to
hmm.
what their voices sounded like and how I thought they would communicate. So like Satya, Vani,
So good.
I she sent me, I love working with her. We were on a sketch team together here in LA, and she's a good actress. And so I had her send me her reel, and in her reel she had a very vulnerable scene where she just felt very, I felt very like empathetic towards her, and she felt very young, and so I thought she would be a great Mel, who is the younger
Hmm.
sister. And boy, is she the younger sister.
Yes.
She is that. Her voice and the way she communicates the lines. She is that annoying little sister. And
Hmm.
when I sent the first episode to a friend, she's like, that little sister bothers me. And I was like, she's supposed to.
Yeah.
She did her job. She's
Right.
fantastic. She's a fantastic, impassioned younger sister, but who also has a lot of great, valid points to and to why she is the way she is.
Yeah.
Um, that she does say, towards the end of the season.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
And
I thought about that, and for people like Gabby and Pavar, who are
woo,
established voice actors, I didn't want to give them just one role because I know they could do a bunch of different voices. So I gave them multiple
yeah.
roles so that they could, go up on their high register or low register, or
Hmm.
so that's why I gave them multiple roles.
Yeah. And one thing that I was really curious about is um, was there a different process in creating a scripted podcast versus like a television show? Because it's different points throughout our production. I saw you close your eyes and kind of just take in, and every scene you would stop and you would talk to us, close your eyes. Like, tell me about what that was like for you, and is there really a difference?
Oh yes, there is.
Yeah.
There is. So when you're writing a television script, you're writing for visual, and I've mostly dealt. I was a journalist for ABC News, and I've written sketches for stage, and I've mostly dealt written for stage and screen. So
Mhm.
writing for audio is very different because you don't have any visual cues at all. You have to everything is audible, and so it's I would close my eyes to envision that I was the listener listening, and I can't see your facial. I was like, I can't see your facial expressions. I just need to listen to see if the lines were reading visually in my head as a
Mm.
listener, which is hard to do because I know the script. So, I think it worked, but you also, when you're writing a scripted podcast, you have to write in the audio cues. So if a character is walking across the room or have a scene where they're painting, you have to write you have to envision like what the characters are doing. Are they picking up the paintbrush and now they're rolling it? If they
Mm.
are, then you need to write
Mhm.
that in so that your audio engineer can create that in post-production, like that sequence. And there was one where I had Mel and Jessica, the leads, cooking lasagna. I was like, they're making lasagna.
Right.
Well, you have to have them cutting on the cutting board. Let's hear that. Let's hear the pot boiling for the pasta. Let's hear them stirring. Now
Mm.
they're stirring. So all the things that a director would direct actors to do in a scene visually, you have to direct the audio engineer to do with sound cues. And you have to think about that. So Joel and I had a few conversations in post where, we did that. We had to step out the scenes. And I think it's a good exercise for writers to do. I think scripted podcasts is a great way for writers who want to write for television to
Mhm.
uh, to showcase their work. I think it's cost efficient. It's easy to get people together on Zoom, record. You could do everything virtually. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And I think that's going to be a big testament to a lot of people in terms of what folks feel was prohibitive from them to do during this particular time. And yet
Mm-hmm.
you found a way, is again another reason why I wanted to have a conversation with you. And so, Marissa, what do you like most, producing, directing, or writing?
I think producing the end. I like producing a lot. I think it's fun.
Okay.
I love writing. Of course, I'll always be writing.
Hmm.
Uh, Man, writing and producing for sure. Directing is a lot of fun,
Hmm.
and I would like to continue doing that. But I have a lot to learn as a director. A lot to learn as a
Yeah.
director. So uh, I would love to continue learning from other directors. I learned a
Mm.
lot. I shadowed quite a few directors over the years. I've shadowed multicam directors. One multicam director is fantastic,
Hmm.
and I've shadowed a few uh, drama directors on set, and that's a whole other beast. It's a
Wow.
whole other beast. Yes, going through pre-production to production and then post is a whole other animal. So there's a lot to learn if I wanted to do that for television, but
Mhm.
it's fun.
Yeah, yeah, it's fun. I love that. And one other thing too. I know I'm asking a lot of questions. I'm just very curious. A lot of people have written to me on the podcast, especially when it first started out, and when I was talking about my books. How
Mhm.
did you know, Clay, that your book was ready, like to go? How did you? Was it a gut feeling at some point? And so I kind of turn that on you, like the scripted podcast. How did you know it was ready?
I developed it in a writing group that I'm in,
Mhm.
and they really enjoyed reading it.
Mhm.
And I said, "This is going to be a good scripted podcast." And I said, "You know what? I just need to produce it. I don't have
Mhm.
any current work out for the world to see. I just need to produce it." And I think it was more of it being a 2020 thing
Yeah.
of just do it. I think it was
Why
just
not?
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? If people don't like it, who cares? I can do it again. I know I've done it once. I
Mm.
can do it again and I'll do it. It'll be better. I can tell you that experience of producing the show, I learned a
Mhm.
lot about my writing and what I would do differently. So I think it's worth it in that sense that you learn
Mm.
about yourself as a writer and a producer. You're like, okay, I learned that I did this and I will not do that again and I will do it differently next time.
Mhm.
And then just from everything that I've learned over the past several months from being in writing groups, very important, writing groups, reading, writing books,
Mm.
studying scripts and studying shows, I've definitely become a stronger writer in the past 6 months or so. So my writing's changed a lot since I wrote this, which is
Yeah.
good. But I think that's even more reason why somebody should put the work out there and share, because it forces you to grow faster.
Yeah, and I always think, in my line of work, and just me in particular, when I auditioned for this, I was thinking about it in terms, especially in the way in which you were coaching me through different parts. I was bringing all of my life experiences into just this one particular character, not in a sense of saying they're informing what Naif, was going to say and do, none of that,
Mm-hmm.
but the readiness of it. Like, some people feel, oh, I'm not ready for it. And then you bring in all of your life experiences. Oh, wait, no, I was in advanced drama in high school. Oh, wait, I was in drama in college. Oh, wait, I was in hair. Oh, wait, I'm a voiceover. Like, that's what,
Yes.
but that's what I'm saying. Like, you help open my eyes to that, kind of thing. And like, I just wish so many people would give themselves the opportunity to bring all their life experiences into whatever they're going to do. It changes everything.
Yes, absolutely. Because when you auditioned, I was cracking up and I said, Clay's a comedian. Clay's a comedy actor. Why isn't this a comedy? Because
It was so dramatic.
it's a dark. I mean, it is pretty funny. I mean, there are moments where you laugh. It's a drama, but it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that inspired me to. I said, you know what? I have to write the next thing I write. I have to write a comedy because I want Clay to be in this because he's so funny.
Please.
He's
That
so
would.
hilarious and campy, and I love writing camp. And this is a campy drama, but yeah.
Okay. And so
Mhm.
you would classify it as a drama? What do you classify
It's
it
a
as?
drama, but it has some moments of camp in it for sure.
Yeah.
Because it's ridiculous. But again, like I said, a lot of the scenes that I wrote actually happened to me in real life, so it's questionable
Yeah.
what people
And
are
speaking,
doing.
it definitely is. And so speaking of that, because I had no idea that a lot of this happened to you. Um, and then the audience, they'll hear the actual show. But at any point in time, was this a healing process for you too? Like, did
I
you,
think
or was it not
so.
that? Okay.
Yeah, I think like one example of something that I alluded to, an experience that I had, I was at one of these houses and was talking to a couple people about. I went to Burning Man, and they asked, "Oh, did you do drugs?" And I said, "No, I don't. I don't do drugs."
Mm.
And one of the women I was talking to said, "Well, if you're not called to do acid, then you're just not called." And I said, "Well, in what universe am I supposed to be called to do a psychedelic drug? Like, I just don't like what."
Yeah.
And in the way she said it was so condescending, as if I was not like high vibration, enough to do something like that. And I think there's a lot of that peer
Mm.
pressure to do
Mhm.
partake in psychedelics because you want to prove. It's not because you want to have that spiritual psychedelic experience. It's to prove to
Mhm.
the group that you are also a high
Mhm.
vibration, higher level person who is, you know, mind is open enough and to experience that. And so I allude to that too. I think I think because I think it's a false narrative. I think it's a dangerous narrative to say that you're not spiritual unless you partake in like plant medicines or psychedelics. I don't think that's true.
Right.
But that's a
Right.
very, very, very strong um, narrative uh, that lives within this spiritual community. And so I wanted to talk
Yeah.
about that. And I think it was healing for me too to kind of release that. I mean, it's upsetting
Mm-hmm.
I think because I think there are a lot of vulnerable people. There's also a lot of mental illness in the spiritual community that is unaddressed too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's those people who are vulnerable to that sort of
Wow.
narrative, and yeah.
You strike a very, I think, amazing balance in sharing that story and also of the dangers and some of the pitfalls, but also some of the actual healing moments that can take place and the realizations, like you're saying, on both sides. I cannot wait for people to listen to this next week. And speaking of listening,
Mm-hmm.
one thing that we all can agree on, Joel Edinburgh.
It's
Can we talk
amazing.
about Joel?
Yes,
How
yes.
did you get connected to him? And I mean, the score is incredible. Like, how did that relationship manifest and grow?
Sure. I actually need to send you the first couple eps so you can listen to before.
Yes.
So I met Joel at my friend Claudia got married a few years ago, and so I met Joel at her engagement party. And we were talking. He said he did, he's an audio engineer and a composer. We got along really well, and I took his card, and we became Facebook friends. And it's always talked about, we need to work together. We need to work together. He's based in Boston, and so so he's based in Boston. I guess over the summer of 2020, I posted on Facebook that I was looking for an audio engineer for a
Mhm.
podcast, and he messaged me and he's like, "Hey, remember me?" And I said, "Yes, actually, I meant to reach out to you, and
Yeah.
since you messaged me, here we go." So we negotiated a price and agreed to work together, and I'd love to work with him again
Hmm.
for another project. He's just fantastic. He's a composer. He does music for television and commercials.
Mm.
He's also a musician. I think he's a saxophonist, and he plays a bunch of other instruments. And he's great. He's just built a home studio, so he's going to be like a bigger studio. So he's going to be rocking and rolling this year. I think he's going
Yeah.
to be, explode for real. He's fantastic.
He's incredible, and the score that I that you posted on your social channels, I have gotten messages from people like, okay, I didn't know what you were in before, you were talking about Venice, but after seeing the score and then the visual video to go with it, I am intrigued. I can't wait to June 1st comes. Like, people literally are putting it on their calendar.
Oh,
uh
nice. That's so
yeah.
sweet. Yeah, the theme song, his theme song, it was like very haunting and dark.
Yes.
And he made some great like hippie EDM music that plays in the background when we're at Oasis. And he connected me to also my friend Arama's music is in it. She's also very talented singer. We have another musician, Peter Parchek. His music's in like a dive bar scene. So
Mhm.
and Joel was really great at finding undiscovered artists. We have a few that we wanted to use. I couldn't afford because of budget, but hopefully next time. He found some fantastic
Yeah.
undiscovered, underrepresented artists in the Boston area. So I think I'm going to put them on a
Marissa, get your
Spotify
Beyonce
playlist.
on.
I think I'm going to put together a
Get your
Venice Spotify
Beyonce on and
playlist.
find.
Yeah. Get my
Okay.
Beyonce on.
That is, get your Beyonce on, give the underrepresented people a shot, an opportunity. Like,
Yeah.
she
I
does
think
that so well.
I really want to. I mean, it wasn't really important for me to find people, and just so I think I will put together a Venice Spotify playlist with some of the artists that we included, but also others that we weren't able to because of budget. But it'd be great if people heard them.
Yeah. So then you really anticipated my next question, the financial commitment that a lot of these projects take. And for a lot of people, there's I don't have the money, I don't have the resources. How would you direct someone in terms of being creative like this and being able to
Yeah.
pull something together who just don't have the resources, or they're trying to figure out what are ways that they can support themselves?
Well, I like to pay my actors. So I looked up the SAG rates and I paid them that as close as I could get to that for an audio recording, low
You were very
budget.
clear about that, Marisa. You were very clear. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
With the audio engineers is more expensive for obvious reasons. And I wasn't able to pay him his full rate. We negotiated a rate. But I'm hoping that on the next project, he agreed to it because a lot of the music that he's creating for Venice, he's going to be able to put out on the market for people to buy and use for their use.
Nice.
Which is great for him. And then I'm hoping that with the next project we do together, that I'm able to pay him I'd like to pay him his rate, but fortunately we have things like GoFundMe and Kickstarter. I'm not using either of those platforms because I'm not using Kickstarter because the whole idea of giving people merchandise doesn't appeal to me. I think if people want to donate, they can to support us, would be great. And then the donations would recoup my out of pocket costs. And then hopefully if we reach our fundraising goal, the actors get an extra bonus, which I would love. Like everyone gets a bonus. The actors get a bonus. And Joel will too. So
nice.
And then hopefully I can pay myself because I haven't gotten paid. So I would like to get paid for my work.
Yes. And we want that to happen. Yeah. And so Marisa, now speaking of just funding, what kind of support do you need, and where can we send in checks to support you or money?
Would be great.
Yeah.
We're only raising $6,700 for season 1. And I'll send you the link to the Venice. We have a website with a PayPal link.
Okay.
And I figured PayPal would just be easier. I think a lot of people are now starting to use PayPal or GoFundMe to fundraise. And I just chose PayPal, just kind of cut out the middleman, kind of. And we're raising $6,700 for the first season. That will cover everything. And if we exceed our goal, then I will consider doing a season 2 or rolling that money into creating another scripted podcast of a different variety. I already have I have an idea of what I want to do next, but featuring a lot of the same actors.
Yeah. Marisa, listen, friend, I just, and coach, look, I want to congratulate you on creating, I haven't even heard it. I just know what we did together, but I just want to congratulate you on creating a successful scripted podcast for all of your work, your amazing writing, and just for really taking the plunge. Yeah, no, it needed to happen, and I wanted.
I was going to say, you're featured very heavily, I think, in episodes 3, 4, and 5, I think. But you do appear in episodes 1 and 2. So.
Okay. Yay. Excited about that. Now, listen, where can we learn more about you as an individual and as well as the show? And when is the show dropping again?
The show comes out June 1st, the first 3 episodes. And then and that's a Tuesday, and then the following episodes 4, 5, and 6 will come out the following Tuesdays on anywhere you can get a podcast, Apple, Spotify, etc., Google Play. And you can find information about me on marisabramwell.com. Very simple, or on my company website, which is Renanet Shy. And that's where the Venice podcast is going to live.
Oh, before you leave, now did you mention, where does Renanet Shy, where does that come from? The name of your production company? I mean, no.
I wanted something that signified like wealth and abundance and fertility, I guess, which sounds
Yes.
weird, but I wanted something that inspired like abundance. And so Reninit and Shai are the two Egyptian goddess and god of harvest, fertility, abundance. So that's where that comes from. And I thought it was an unusual name, but there are quite a few companies with that name. So they're just, but mine's a production company. So I had Reninit Shai Productions to make it different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But
I love that. Set that intention for what it is.
Yes, I think that's very important when you're creating a company name. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and hey, that might be the title of this podcast. So listen, Marisa, friend, congratulations again.
Thank you,
Tuesday, folks, Tuesday. Be sure to check out this incredible podcast, Venice, which is available on any platform. I'll be sure to have all of Marissa's contact information at the base of this podcast where you can learn more, as well as send those checks. Send those checks a link to financially support this project. Listen, folks, it's going to be well worth it, promise.
And support Clay, too.
Yes. So listen, folks, remember, you can learn more about me by visiting clayaskWilliams.com. And I'm on all of your favorite social media by the handle of @PlanA with Clay. That's @PlanA with Clay. And remember, folks, Clay is with a K. Thanks for listening. I look forward to seeing you in our very next episode. Peace, friends.